Bora pedir logo 99? Daqui a pouco o show já vai começar.
Tô pedindo aqui já.
Pede e já negocia, hein?
Negocia? Ué, como assim?
99 negocia, ué. Agora a gente pode negociar com os motoristas parceiros da 99, direto pelo aplicativo.
Mentira! Que babado! Para negociar o preço da sua corrida, a 99 é o melhor negócio. Tenha corridas com mais autonomia e segurança. Experimente o 99 Negocia hoje mesmo. Abra o app e confira.
We're here to entertain you. We'll sing your songs for good times, the best times. You can't go wrong. We'll two-step, a new step. It won't be long when the Dixielanders are playing. Soon you'll be swaying, so come on, sing along.
Hello, and welcome back to yet again another episode of Before My Time. I am your host, Gelsey Laurie, and this week we are joined by our producer friend and, let's face it, co-host, Matt Kelly, and he's going to tell us about an old sci-fi TV show called The Prisoner. Get excited. Woo!
It is mind-blowing.
And heartbreaking.
How many original scripts are written every year but are never made?
So we seek out these scripts and bring them to life with full audio production and professional actors.
Check us out at Undiscovered Scripts,
Movies made of paper.
wherever you get your podcasts.
Free!
All right, so Gelsey,
Yes.
am I to understand that you do not know what The Prisoner is?
I don't. You were like, I'm going to do The Prisoner. And I was like, what's that?
Okay, so The Prisoner, and I'm going to use verbatim Wikipedia description because I think it sums it up so well. The Prisoner is a 1967 British avant-garde social science fiction television miniseries.
Perfect. Got it.
So when I was a kid, I have this VHS tape that I've held on to for probably 20 years that my mom had taped for me when I was a kid. That one night on Fox, like, you know, when you were a kid, you know, there'd be The Simpsons at 7:00, say, and then like you had this whole routine. But then like usually the 8 to 10 slot would be like completely random. It'd be like the Fox movie of the week or this, that, or the other thing. And one week it was this 2-hour special called The Museum of Science and History Presents Science Fiction Throughout the Ages. And it was hosted by Carrie Fisher, William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy, and Dean Cain. And they went
watch this right now.
Oh, it's great. You can find people upload it on YouTube, but I still like keeping my VHS tape with all the commercials on it. And they literally went through the entire history of, from the day television started, science fiction and what science fiction's importance was. And it was broken into these different segments. So they do a segment on time travel shows, and they do a segment on space travel and stuff like that. But their one segment was called Nightmare Worlds. And it was Twilight Zone, and it was The Prisoner. And that was my first exposure to The Prisoner. And because of that, I feel comfortable with the fact that I'm probably going to spoil the shit out of this miniseries. But even with me having watched this tape and knowing the full story of The Prisoner for probably 2 decades before I actually sat down and watched it, it did not lessen the impact on how incredible this miniseries is, right? So, the show was created, written, and starring Patrick McGoohan. He played the secret agent John Drake on the espionage program Danger Man from 1960 to 1968. And it was kind of like him playing this James Bond-like character.
Okay.
The Prisoner is a show that he wrote about trying to escape being typecast as a secret agent. So the show starts off with an unnamed British intelligence agent who abruptly decides to quit his job, and on his way home is gassed and imprisoned in a mysterious coastal village where all of his captors are desperately trying to find out why he wants to leave his job. It's like this paradise. Like he walks around and it's this beautiful area. Like there's like human chess, but no one has a name. Everyone's referred to as numbers. So he is number 6 and he reports to number 2 throughout the show. But in another weird twist to build the paranoia, a different guest actor plays number 2 in every single episode. So,
oh, wow, cool.
So he never knows, like he'll walk in and be like, I'm here to speak to number 2. And they're like, that's me. And he just gets this look on his face of like, but I was literally yesterday just working with a different number 2. Like it's like this constant frustration. And his end goal is to escape from the island. Well, it's to find out who number 1 is, escape from the island, and destroy the island eventually. And throughout this like 17-part series, there's multiple episodes where you think he's going to do it. He's going to escape. And every single time his plan is foiled and every episode just ends with his face, a cartoon of his face zooming up to the camera just before 2 bars come and slam shut in front of him. Like being this weird symbolized thing of his imprisonment inside of this land. The show has been parodied countless times. The biggest one I remember is The Simpsons did a parody of it when Homer was running an internet site full of gossip and accidentally revealed real gossip and got kidnapped. Instead of having security on this island, they have these giant floating bubbles that will suction onto your face and basically suffocate you. And then they'll take you back to your like prison cell essentially. But your prison cell is this gorgeous house with everything you could ever want. Like it's like the accommodations are fantastic. It's just that you have literally no self on this island.
And who are these other people that are all different numbers?
Supposedly all just past agents trying to break him and get the answers that they want.
So they're all in on it.
For the most part, then there's just people that are there and there's no real explanation on who these people are, but they all seem
like,
they all seem very happy to be there. And like that's the thing.
Right.
So it has, like I said, it's avant-garde is such a great word to describe it. The way that this show feels, like I genuinely believe that this show probably changed the way that television is done and is closer to what you would expect now. Like, I don't think that Lost would exist without a show like The Prisoner. I don't think like all these heady TV shows that we get. One of my favorite shows that the new season's about to drop on Netflix, Russian Doll, like you wouldn't get.
I love Russian Doll.
When Patrick made this show, he wrote a 40-page show Bible that included the entire history of the village, the types of telephones that are used, how the sewage system works, what they use for transportation, like every aspect of it. And he directed a lot of the episodes, but used synonyms so people didn't know that the writer, creator, and star was also the director of most of the episodes. So like this was very much his hands-on project. And I think it's just so, it's one of those things where, you know, if you put on, I use this example all the time. If you were to put on Citizen Kane with no context, fine. It is what it is, right? But if you watch all of the movies that came out before Citizen Kane, and then you watch Citizen Kane, how unique and different it is from its direction to its pacing to its story to camera angles to like all of that comes more to the forefront because you're seeing it through the lens of the people who would have seen Citizen Kane for the first time, as opposed to through the lens of people who've watched the almost 100 years of influence from that movie.
Right.
That's how I feel about when you look at something like The Prisoner. Like, look at what was like what TV looked like in the 50s and 60s, and then you watch this show, and it totally makes sense why it was beloved by the critics, but not a big show television wise, because I think it was too abstract and weird.
Much. Yeah, that was like too much. Mm-hmm.
So a couple awards and honors. The final episode actually was nominated for a Hugo Award for Best Dramatic Presentation. It won it's currently in the Prometheus Hall of Fame. It was inducted in that in 2020. In 1997 and 2001, TV Guide listed the final episode as one of the 55 greatest TV show episodes of all time. In 2005, the readers of SFX magazine awarded it 5th place in a poll of the greatest British fantasy and sci-fi shows of all time. Also in 2005, in a survey with rock and roll and film stars for Uncut magazine, ranking the greatest films, books, music, and TV shows that changed the world, it placed The Prisoner at number 10, which was the highest television show on the entire list. And then in 2013, TV Guide ranked it the 9th greatest science fiction show of all time. So it's got this huge accolade, and it's caused, there's a spin-off series of books. They made some computer games of it in the 80s. There was a comic book run in the late 80s based on it. They even did a remake of it on AMC in 2009. I never watched it. It
Really?
mostly was negatively reviewed. Christopher Nolan's been trying to make a film version of this since 2009. It's been the influence of this show is far stretching, right? But I want to talk about the final episode, because the final episode is what really won me over for this show. So the final episode is called Fallout. And the way that this episode works is that our main character, number 6, finally gets to go and see who this number 1 is, right? And he walks in, number 1 turns around, and he's cloaked up and he's wearing a mask, and he's replaying all this footage from the previous 17 episodes. And the one famous line that popped up in the first episode just starts looping over and over and over again. And it's number 6 saying, "I will not be pushed, filed, stamped, indexed, briefed, debriefed, or numbered, because my life is my own." And it keeps playing that over and over and over and over and over again. And then he rips off this mask, and it reveals number 6's face as
I
number
knew
1.
it. Oh, I knew it. I was like, it's going to be number 6. I knew it.
It ends on such a twisted, like, you
So
will
it's all
not,
in his mind?
as that's the implication. He said he left it
Or it's one of
open-ended.
those, like, interpretation. I hate that shit. Oh my god, that's like Inception. It ends and everyone's like, I think he's awake. Well, I think he's still dreaming. And I'm like, can they just tell us? This is bullshit.
But see, I think the flip side of this is that, again, this is kind of one of those chicken or the egg type situations where I almost wonder, because can you think of many other like 50s and 60s shows that end it with like a abstract open-ended ending? I feel like this may have been the first one.
I don't know. I mean, the only thing, like, this does remind me a lot of, and you already kind of said, the Twilight Zone, which I noted down. I was like, we definitely have to do a Twilight Zone episode. But
yeah,
I love the Twilight Zone, and it does, I feel like, had a lot of those, like, left for the audience to, but those are more like left with a pondering thought. I feel like they left kind of a daunting theme a lot at the end of Twilight Zone, and would end on a maybe say dark note where you're like, oh my gosh, but it left you more with internal, like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, if, like, oh god, I'm gonna ponder this, not like, wait, what is that? Didn't he? Like, they didn't go quite as extreme as what you just said, and so.
So here's a quote from the creator a decade after they were interviewing him about the fact that people were kind of like all over the place about this ending. And they asked him how he felt. And he said, "I'm delighted by the reaction because it was always my intention to create some type of controversy." He further explained that his enjoyment of the outrage was in line with the show's overall message, that as long as people feel something, then that's a great thing. It's when they're walking around not thinking, not feeling, that's where all the dangerous stuff is. Because when you get into a mob like that, then you can turn into some gang similar to what Hitler had. The popular press joined in with the public indignation of this rubbish that he had foiled them with. So it was definitely one of those shows where I think at the time people were like, what the fuck? But like,
yeah.
More.
I haven't even watched it, and I feel like that just by you telling me the synopsis and how it ends. I'm like, come on. But
yeah, I have been preaching my love of this show pretty much since before I even saw it. Like, because just the segment that they did in this special, I was like, this show seems unbelievable. And like when Netflix first came around and it was sending discs, I saw that it was available on there and I was like, I can finally watch it. And the discs were only 2 episodes at a time.
Bora pedir logo 99? Daqui a pouco o show já vai começar.
Tô pedindo aqui já.
Pede e já negocia, hein?
Negocia? Ué, como assim?
99 negocia, ué. Agora a gente pode negociar com os motoristas parceiros da 99, direto pelo aplicativo.
Mentira! Que babado! Para negociar o preço da sua corrida, a 99 é o melhor negócio. Tenha corridas com mais autonomia e segurança. Experimente o 99 Negocia hoje mesmo. Abra o app e confira.
So like, I would
Like,
watch 2
sit back,
episodes
watch
and then
it,
I'd
set
have
it
to
back.
watch it and wait a couple days for the next 2. And I was getting so stoked. And I for a really long time, I would use number 6 as like similarly to like how a lot of people will still refer to me as Saint Mort because that was my internet alias for so long. Like number 6 was also a very popular alias for me for a while because I was just like, ooh, it's heady, it's British, people will love it.
I'm so ahead of everyone else.
Yeah, definitely. Listen, Matt loved to be my brother. My brother once said, Matt Kelly has never met a Halloween costume that he didn't want to explain to people in detail.
Yeah, there you go. I think people's online persona names says a lot about them. Like, I think my first AIM screen name was Monkey Butt Dancer.
That seems, I mean, that catches all of it. I
was also a child, and yeah. And then I was Velmster for a while because I loved Scooby-Doo, and I'm a Velma girl.
My first screen name, in a true misunderstanding of double meanings, I was a Christian kid who loved ska music. So of course,
I can't wait for this one.
Of course, my screen name was Skank for God, and
Wait. How? I'm thinking it was like ska.
No, like skanking, like skank. So it was skank number
What is
4.
skanking?
That's the dance that you do when you listen to ska music, where you
What?
kick those arms up and down and kick the feet. Yeah, that's called skanking.
I did not know that. Do you
Yep.
not
See, and I didn't
skank.
know what the other meaning of
Ladies and
skank
gentlemen.
was.
Because you were a good little Christian kid.
Yeah, I was just like, yeah, skank for God. And then, man, I would get messages. The messages.
Oh yeah, the chat rooms. I accidentally wandered into quite a because I was like a chat room about a cartoon show I like,
Yeah.
and I quickly learned that is not what they are talking about.
Nope.
You guys,
Nope.
those were the days.
Those
I
are
was
fronts.
like, I am a child.
Yeah, I think about if you could like go back in time and just read what because I don't remember what the conversations were happening in chat rooms, but I'm sure that if I looked at them now at 36, I'd be like, oh no, young Matt Kelly, you shouldn't be here.
Yeah. I remember some were very apparent to I was probably like a preteen. I don't know, when I would go into chat rooms, and that's when there were things so apparent that I remember being like, oh my God, X out, X out, X out. As fear is like, oh my God, I'm not supposed to be reading this. If mom or dad walk in and see the word dick on my screen, they're gonna be like, what are you talking about? Like, it just things I remember. Sometimes it wasn't like you would like chat with strangers and conversations would like slowly go there because that was like the beginning of childpedia or pedophile internet catfishing kind of stuff. So like I could probably
sounds like the worst encyclopedia on the internet.
I wish I could go back and read some, even my own chats, but at the same time, I think those should just be locked up. Like, they should be either in a chest in the warehouse that the Ark is placed in Raiders of the Lost Ark, or buried deep with the Jumanji board game underground. So like, we're trying to not find these things. I don't think I ever want to read that stuff.
It's probably for the best that they do not get read. No, I agree.
And I don't want to see my responses and how I just don't know. Bury it.
Yeah, no, I think that's valid.
What a tangent we just went on.
No, it's beautiful.
Little dial-up internet.
Oh man,
Like,
I just had a flashback. You nailed it. Is that on your resume? Is one of your skills is a pitch perfect impression
Dial-up
of what the dial-up internet sounded like?
Dial-up beatboxing.
Have I convinced you to check out some of The Prisoner?
You have. I'm not gonna lie. I first want to check out this special.
Yeah,
on Sci-Fi. I'm like really geeked about that. I'm like, oh, wait, I need to watch this immediately.
dude, I'll tell you, that thing never
I'm so
made
excited.
that. So I have a vivid memory, and we'll get into this probably way deeper when we do eventually do a Twilight Zone episode. But
Mhm.
obviously, during the Nightmare World segment, when they were talking about Twilight Zone, they highlighted a couple key episodes, and I was familiar with some of them, right? Like they showed Nightmare on 20,000 Feet, which like I feel like I just always knew that existed. I always knew there's something on the wing of the plane bit,
Mhm.
and I always knew they did Land That Time Forgot, or the something, not Land That Time Forgot, but Time Enough at Last, where the guy has the glasses and the glasses fall. But I had no clue what the story of Eye of the Beholder was, and they started discussing that episode, and man, that was where I was like, I'm gonna go to bed now. Like I was like so fucked up
Which
from that
one is
one.
that?
Eye of the Beholder is where the girl's face is all bandaged up because they're trying to make her beautiful.
Yes.
And then they
Yes.
finally take off the bandages, and she's like the most gorgeous woman you've ever seen. But they all start yelling that the operation was a failure. And then when they turn on the lights, they're all like
They're all
horribly,
like,
yeah.
yes, yes,
Oh
yes.
my God.
I remember that one.
Being like
That
9
one
years
and
old watching that, I was like, oh no. Like,
yeah. That one, and then we would always watch we did like a whole, I think I had to write a paper on this episode in literature class because film. Like a bunch of people in a neighborhood and like the lights, the power goes out.
Monsters
And so
on
then
Maple Street.
Yes. Monsters on Maple Street, and they all kind of it turns into everyone starts self-accusing. It was you with it, and they all turn against each other because of just power. And then at the very end, it fades out to two aliens on a cliff with a remote control, and they're like, "See, if we just keep doing this, eventually they'll just destruct themselves." And obviously, it's a theme on human. It was like, whoa, that
Yeah.
got deep, and we are awful people. Like
I don't know why, but yeah, my class also had us read. We did like a script reading
in
of
my
that.
textbook. Yeah, we had a script reading in the textbook. It was like one of the things, and then they had like questions after that you had to do like comprehension on it. And then my teacher was like, "Well, we can watch the episode." He let us watch the episode in class. That's funny. We must have had the same textbook.
It
Or
must
there's
have-
some
That's so crazy though that was like a thing that like they're just
there
like,
must
no,
be
this is kids
something to
need
learn
know
from
this.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good comprehension of, I don't know, let's talk about how humans are our own enemies, or I don't know. Anyways, I will check out The Prisoner.
Good. I'm glad. I
Yeah.
hope you like it. Please don't be angry at me if you don't.
What's up, everybody? This is Brian here to tell you about our podcast, Bingetown TV. Our hosts include 7 best friends with a love for all things television. We cover a range of genres with a focus on fantasy and sci-fi, but also dip our feet into drama, horror, comedy, and pretty much anything we think is good television. We use the traditional deep dive formula for new live shows that are released week to week, but our calling card is our Rooks and Vets and Pitchtown TV series. Rooks and Vets pairs 2 of our hosts that have seen a show with 2 of our hosts that have not seen a show. Pitchtown TV is when we have a special guest pitch us a show by having us watch the pilot and trying to convince us to watch the rest. If you're craving more content on some of your favorite TV shows, then you should listen to Bingetown TV. Find us on our website at bingetowntv.com, the Apple Podcast app, Spotify, or wherever else you may find your podcast.
So, Gelsey, like I said about The Prisoner, it's very surrealistic and avant-garde. And I'm curious, is that something that you actually look for in a show, or do you almost like actively just want it to be as linear and straightforward as possible?
It depends my mood. Like a lot of times I just want it to be pretty fucking linear, because TV for me is my unwind, de-stress, turn my brain off at the end of the day, try to get like my whatever happened today to quiet down and like entertain me, fool, before I go to bed. And so that's why I tend to go towards more comedies. I want to end my day laughing. I just want to be like in a good mood. I don't want to take on someone else's stress. So that's why sometimes people are like, oh my God, this new series, like you're going to binge it. You can't sleep at night. I'm like, why would I want to watch that? But I do sometimes fall into them where I'm like, oh, a new show. I like this actor. And you mentioned Russian Doll. Like I did watch that and I was like, oh, this is so good. And when something starts to twist my brain, I do get into it. And I'm like, oh, because I love thinking deep. But I tend to fall more into movies like that. Like I like to find movies that make me think in this, that. Like a TV series just is so much commitment. I don't want to spend 20 hours to think hard. Like Give me a good movie. Give me the Inception. I'm for it. I love them. But yeah, I normally go, I love a good sitcom.
Yeah. No, I think that I bounce between both, but I'm definitely more of a sitcom person
We can
overall
speak.
because like the same thing you said. Like I want to just kind of I'll take the fluff. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
I'll
I
watch
like
an
it.
episode of Friends that I feel lukewarm over quicker than I'll like rewatch an episode of Lost. You know what I mean? Which I
Yeah.
think was good. You know what I mean? Like it's like I think Lost was
Yeah,
good.
I never watched Lost, and everyone's
I
like, but you have to, and I was like, I'd rather not. You know what? I'm not a Friends person. I know we talked about this.
I'm
I do
not
not
either,
watch
but that's what I'm
Friends.
saying. Like, I would rather take something that I'm not even that big of a fan of, that's like easy breezy fluff, than like rewatch a
Mhm.
show that I really like that's going to like make me think too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
Like,
I rewatch. I put Will and Grace on last night to go to bed. Like,
I need to do a Will and Grace rewatch. At one point, I started it
it's
and I
so
was having so
funny.
fun. It was so funny, but it was
That's what I was watching instead of Friends was Will and Grace. Like,
so when I would dog sit for a friend, she had the complete series, and that was like
ugh,
at a certain point, I was like dog sitting for her like maybe 4 times a year. So I'd be like, oh, I'm just going to like knock out a season every time I dog sit. Then
mhm.
she had kids, and the random sporadic week trips definitely slowed down, and thus so did my Will and Grace rewatch.
So it is all the kids' fault for you
Yep,
not
kids ruin
watching Will and
everything.
Grace.
Back to what we
Yep.
talked about last week. All right, so Gelsey, if people have some suggestions of mind-bendy shows that neither you or I will probably actually sit down and watch, where can they
For
send
sure.
those anyway?
Yeah, please let us know the shows that we won't watch on Facebook. You can search Before My Time, will pop up. Let us know. And on Instagram, you can find us at Before My Time _podcast. And a question, guys. This is a mind-bending question. Have you left a review for us yet? Have you clicked 5 stars? Because that would be out of this world if you did. We would really appreciate it. We appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in and listening to us babble on about things we love. Hope you join us next week and hope you have a beautiful day. Bye.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network. You're listening to the Geekscape Network.